Good morning and welcome to Lucas Oil Stadium for the 2024 Big Ten Football Media Days presented by Old National Bank. At this time, please welcome to the stage the 7th Commissioner of the Big Ten Conference, Tony Petitti.
Thank you. Good morning. Welcome to Lucas Oil Stadium for the 52nd Annual Big Ten Football Media Days presented by Old National Bank. Thank you to the Indiana Sports Corp, Jim Irsay and the Colts, and the City of Indianapolis for your incredible hospitality. In just over 4 months, nearly 70,000 fans will pack these seats for the Discover Big Ten Football Championship game, broadcast on CBS for the first time. I'm proud to announce today that Lucas Oil Stadium will be the home of the Big Ten Football Championship game for another 4 seasons through 2028. I'm also happy to be the first to share with you that the National Football Foundation will be presenting the John L. Toner Athletic Director of the Year Award to Ward Manuel from the University of Michigan. Congratulations, Ward, on this well-deserved recognition. Ward will also begin his term as the College Football Playoff Selection Committee Chair this season. We are now just 10 days away from welcoming our 4 new members to the Big Ten Conference: the University of Oregon, UCLA, USC, and the University of Washington. Before we look ahead, let's look back at a remarkable year from our more than 10,000 student athletes across 28 sports. Last year was an incredible year in women's sports, in large part because of what happened in the Big Ten. It began in August with Volleyball Day in Nebraska, where more than 92,000 fans, the largest crowd to ever gather for a women's sporting event, packed Memorial Stadium. Then in October, a women's college basketball attendance record was shattered when more than 55,000 Iowa fans filled Kinnick Stadium. Just 2 weeks later, Wisconsin and Minnesota met in the most viewed volleyball match in television history, only to see that number topped by Nebraska and Texas in December's NCAA championship. That match was played in front of the largest indoor crowd in college volleyball history. Iowa set records for the most watched women's basketball game ever on 7 different networks during the season. Their Elite 8, Final 4, and national championship games each set new records for the most watched event in the sport's history. And the final against South Carolina was the most watched basketball game, men's or women's, college or pro, since 2019. You really can't tell the story of last year in sports without acknowledging the woman who now plays right here in Indianapolis. Caitlin Clark led the Hawkeyes to a title at a sold-out Big Ten women's basketball tournament and was a National Player of the Year in women's college basketball. In volleyball, Sarah Franklin from Wisconsin was named AVCA Player of the Year, and Izzy Skane from Northwestern earned her 2nd straight Player of the Year honor in college lacrosse. On the men's side, Purdue's Zach Edey gave the Big Ten a sweep of college basketball's Player of the Year awards, and Aaron Brooks is not only a 4-time national champion and U.S. Olympian, he was the 8th straight Big Ten wrestler to win the Hodge Trophy while leading Penn State to the NCAA championship. In all, Big Ten teams and student athletes won 20 individual national championships and 5 team titles during the year, including Michigan's College Football Playoff Championship. In the classroom, the conference's 14 schools totaled 80 academic All-Americans and 5 NCAA Elite 90 honorees. The Big Ten Network, the first of its kind, set viewership records in basketball, volleyball, soccer, baseball, gymnastics, and cross country this past season. And our digital presence has been rebuilt and is growing, with more than 800 million impressions, twice as many engagements, and a 220% increase in video views over the last 12 months. Competitively, our student athletes continue to excel not only in college, but on professional and international stages as well. 141 Big Ten student athletes were selected in professional drafts, and we will have 116 United States Olympians, the most of any conference, in the Paris Summer Olympic Games, including 30 returning medalists. Every one of our 18 member institutions will be represented on Team USA, in addition to a huge presence on international rosters that brings the total number of Big Ten athletes in Paris to more than 325. On August 2nd, we officially welcomed the University of Oregon, UCLA, USC, and the University of Washington into the Big Ten Conference. These AAU member institutions are leaders in scholarship, innovation, scientific advancements, and athletic excellence. Together, they have won 302 NCAA team championships and will have 49 Olympians on Team USA in Paris. On the football field, they've combined for 10 Heisman trophies, 73 College Football Hall of Famers, 41 Rose Bowl championships, and 173 first-round NFL draft picks, including 6 just this year. Our staff is focused on working with all 4 institutions to ensure they hit the ground running this summer. This includes extensive collaboration with our coaching groups on scheduling and championship formats, marketing and branding alignment, and integration into the Big Ten Academic Alliance. They joined us during the most transformative period in college sports. Over the past year, the Big Ten continued its active engagement in helping chart a new path for college athletics, working with our chancellors, presidents, and administrators, and alongside our conference colleagues, we formalized expansion of the college football playoff. In May, we reached an initial agreement on an historic settlement that will allow student athletes to benefit from expanded scholarships and from institutionally provided financial benefits. Additional transparency into third-party NIL deals and market norms will help stabilize college athletics and protect student athletes. While significant strides have been made, there's still much to do. Changes to governance models and operational rules must be debated and implemented. State and local laws that create an uneven playing field still must be addressed. Litigation and administrative proceedings that seek to classify student athletes regardless of sport or school as employees. We continue to work with Congress and our colleagues to address these challenges, and we are optimistic that we will build on the momentum of the past year. The goal remains to provide Big Ten student athletes with a world-class education and the opportunity to compete at the highest level against the very best competition. Today, we're here at Lucas Oil Stadium to celebrate and prepare for the upcoming football season. College football has never been stronger, especially in the Big Ten Conference. Over the next 3 days, you'll have the opportunity to hear from our head coaches and 3 student athletes from each of our 18 schools. First, let's welcome our 7 new head coaches: Kurt Signetti of Indiana, Sharon Moore of Michigan, Jonathan Smith of Michigan State, Dan Lanning of Oregon, Deshaun Foster of UCLA, Lincoln Riley of USC, and Jed Fish of Washington. No sport is better at bringing people together than college football. During the 2023 season, our 18 member schools appeared in 51 games that had at least 70,000 people in attendance, including 20 that exceeded 100,000. Michigan's win over Ohio State was the most watched regular season college football game since 2011 and the 4th most watched since 1993. And Michigan's Rose Bowl victory was a top 10 cable telecast of all time, in front of the game's biggest crowd since 1998. This season will be our first with a full slate of games on 3 broadcast networks, along with cable and direct-to-consumer options, providing fans with the ability to watch Big Ten football in multiple ways. Last season, 44 of the 50 most watched college football games were on over-the-air broadcast networks. This year, Big Ten teams will appear on broadcast networks more than 60 times, the most in college football. Fans will watch Big Ten football on Fox on Friday nights and Saturday at noon, on CBS at 3:30, and on NBC at 7:30, in addition to an array of games airing exclusively on the Big Ten Network, FS1, and Peacock. Our new lineup has more premier matchups week to week than ever before. Ohio State at Oregon, Penn State at USC, Washington at Iowa, and that's just on October 12th. All in addition to the Big Ten rivalries our fans have come to know and love. Our teams are battling for the right to return here on December 7th, the first time the number 1 and number 2 teams in the overall standings will square off for the Big Ten championship. The new expanded college football playoff will give more Big Ten teams the opportunity to compete for a national championship. This season, we're excited to utilize technology to advance the sport of football. Over the last several years, the Big Ten Conference, steered by Vice President for Football Administration, A.J. Eads, has championed legislation permitting coach-to-player helmet communication and the use of sideline video by student athletes and coaches, both of which will be introduced this fall. This season, we're proud to partner with Apple. The iPad is the ideal solution for our coaches and student athletes to watch in-game video. We're excited to have both of these innovations on display here at Lucas Oil so our media, coaches, and players have the opportunity for a hands-on experience. Next month, we look forward to unveiling the Big Ten's new state-of-the-art centralized replay center. It is the most comprehensive of its kind with 18 dedicated replay bays and 6 dedicated medical observation stations that will allow our staff to review plays while at the same time monitoring health and safety. Finally, thank you to our media, our fans, our coaches, and student athletes. The Big Ten Conference has never been stronger. I look forward to all of your questions. Thank you. Thanks.
Questions for Commissioner Petitti?
Kyle Smedley with the Indy Star. You mentioned obviously the 4 expansion teams all on the West Coast, and now that the Big Ten is kind of all over the country, these athletes being students as well, how do you anticipate travel going as far as all the different games across the country? And if there are any issues with travel, is there any plans in place to kind of help them stay on track with school and things like that?
Thank you. So first, I think it's really important to understand that every sport is different. Every sport's got its own regular season format, its own postseason format within the Big Ten. So we start from that place, right? So the process of building the schedules is collaborative. It involves our faculty reps, our administrators, our coaches, all the way across, and ultimately going up to the top of our leadership at the presidential level. We've taken a lot of care to try to minimize travel where we can. I will tell you that we feel really good about where we've ended up across all of our sports. Having said that, I really believe that scheduling is something that has to be constantly evaluated by sport, and I anticipate that we'll get hopefully a lot more right these next couple of years with the way we've formatted and scheduled. But it's our responsibility and our job to listen to student athletes, to listen to coaches, to make sure that we're adjusting and making the changes we need. So while we feel really good about the work that we've done this past summer and that our team has led, I would anticipate that over time there will be changes. It just seems like it would be the natural progression.
Kenneth Berry.
I'm trying to see where you are. There you are. Okay, good.
Kenneth Berry, touchdowns attendance. Commissioner, at Big 12 Media Day and Mountain West Media Day, both commissioners talked about how they wanted to have a bigger imprint, a bigger footprint in Vegas and Los Angeles, not just with, games and scheduling and what's going to be on, TV, but mostly like a lot of flagship events. So obviously you just talked about how Big Ten Championship is going to stay here for the next 4 years. What's the plan, if any, in regards to having more events on the West Coast, LA and Vegas in particular?
Great, thank you. So what I'll say is, given the footprint of the conference, the cities that are now interested in hosting Big Ten champions has clearly expanded. And I think it's, we're really comfortable with the decision to stay in football here in Indianapolis for the next 4 seasons. We think it's the right thing to do. Having said that, I think you're going to see us begin to expand. I think it's really important to make sure that, markets around the country get to experience Big Ten championships. It's a really good way to connect the conference. So I think over time you'll start to see the geographic footprint expand, keeping in mind competitive issues. Obviously, after our championships, teams go into the NCAA tournaments and championships as well. So keeping all of that in mind. But I think you can fully expect that over time, you'll see the footprint of how we host championships change and grow.
Yes, Commissioner Steve Hellwagon, 24/7 Sports and Bucknuts from Columbus. Last year, you were kind of put in an untenable position there mid-season, having to make a ruling on situation involving Michigan football. Just 9 months down the line, if you could reflect back on how that situation unfolded, how difficult that was, who you relied upon with that, and then also if you can provide any insight as to when or if to expect anything from the NCAA on that.
Thank you. I'll take the second part first. I don't know of a timetable. I'm not aware yet about when the NCAA will come to any final determination, whatever that might be. But as to the first part, I can tell you that it was a collaborative process inside the conference office with staff first, trying to understand, gather information. There was a lot of cooperation with the NCAA in terms of the information that we had access to, working with our administrators and ultimately our presidents and chancellors as well. So it was a completely collaborative process. look, I understand, having come from MLB and watching some of the discipline things that had happened there, it's a difficult process when you're, forced with a situation where you have to decide what to do with a member. And that's part of it. You go into that with a lot of respect and trying to understand and do what's fair and protect the entire conference. And that was the approach we took. And I stand by the results of the decision we made.
Hi, Tony. Scott Docterman with The Athletic. I wanted to ask you about specifically expansion. What do you feel like these 4 schools bring this league to enrich this league? And my second question would be, expansion seems to be a relevant topic nationally, even now. What's the Big Ten's position currently on expansion when we see some turmoil that's happening within the ACC currently?
Yeah, so the first question, I would say, I think it's pretty clear when you look at the schedule that we've talked about unveiling here, about the strength and depth of what we're doing. I think the fit of the 4 is across, obviously we're here to talk about football, but when you go beyond that, for our presidents and chancellors, the academic fit is really important if you look at the strength in all other sports that the 4 new members bring. So it's a complete match across many different factors. That's what made the decision to add Oregon, Washington, which was done by my staff, and then the decision that Kevin Warren and his staff did to add USC, UCLA. So I see, great strength across matchups, the footprint that we'll have going forward. I think we've got to get a lot of things right, but I feel really good about the way we're positioned for the future in terms of the health and strength of the conference. With regard to the second part of your question about just, the future, look, we're focused on the 18 right now. That's what we're focused on. We had to do a lot of work. A lot of work had been done to integrate USC, UCLA. We started that work over immediately when we added Oregon and Washington. So I think we're really comfortable where we are. We've got to get this conference right, and that's what our focus is.
Good morning, Commissioner. Todd Sadowski with Fox 43 Sports. You had mentioned Fox Sports is starting a Friday night schedule. Typically, this is a night that colleges have stayed away from and given to high school sports, but it seems this is a commitment long-term to Friday nights. What are the benefits to having the college games on Friday night and any potential hurdles that you might see?
Yeah, I think part of if you look at our footprint on Saturday, having the 3 broadcast partners supported by the cable presence and Big Ten Network, I think Friday's an opportunity for national exposure. So I think you're going to see some programs there really embrace the opportunity to play on Friday. Of course, we don't want to burden any one institution. We care about what happens at the stadium as well and what happens on campus. But if you look at it, it's an opportunity to get programs to showcase them as they build and in matchups. And so I think, for us to have that footprint is really terrific. I think on the hurdle side, look, there are just traditional places that want to play more on Saturday. We understand and respect that. It's a league discussion that involves all 18 about the best way to format our schedule, where coaches are embracing opportunities to have that exposure on Friday night. We try to lean into that. And so that's the way we approach it. Where are we more likely to go? That'll change over time. But I think collectively we all understand that we're doing this together, and we've got to make every telecast opportunity work for the conference to be as strong and healthy as we can.
Dustin Schutte, Sports Illustrated. This is the first time since 2019 there are no Big Ten conference games in week 1. Are you guys moving away from that, or was that just how the schedule shook out this year?
I think it's the way the schedule shook out. I think there's a lot, going on. We obviously play 9 conference games. We're trying to balance that. I think, Kerry Kenny and our team have done a really remarkable job of coming up with a schedule that takes in so many factors. Obviously, the non-conference schedule, the competitive balance, travel, getting through the season. But I think the core of what we do is that we are in the grind of conference football in November, and that's like the primary piece. I'm more concerned about that run to the end of the season than necessarily, conference game is the first or second week.
Hey, Tony. Luke Evans, Orange County Register. I'm curious, you mentioned the House settlement and the effect that's going to have. Just what broad range on the schools in this conference do you see the decision-making there having on the role of collectives in the NIL space, and particularly when you talk about revenue sharing as well? Is there any sort of plan or discussion around kind of a conference-wide plan for that for member schools?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack in the House settlement. We expect it to be filed hopefully this week, and then go through the process with Judge Wilkin to get it to a final position sometime, we're hoping, the next several months. But that new model is going to require a lot of changes in terms of how we operate, you now have a situation where schools can provide benefits directly to student athletes. If there's a cap on that system, we've got to monitor what schools are spending, so you need a reporting system there that doesn't exist. We need a process to evaluate true NIL deals. We want student athletes to be able to take advantage of their name and likeness. We need to make sure that's what's really happening. And look, the role of third parties, to the extent that third parties can connect student athletes to real NIL opportunities, that's a great thing. And I think that's the priority. So, in this new model, student athletes will have sort of three areas that they can take advantage of. They'll still retain their scholarships, the academic benefits, the connection to academics, that's vitally important. They'll be able to receive direct compensation, from their institutions. And third, they'll be able to capitalize on NIL to the extent that their NIL rights have value either locally or nationally. But we've got to build that model, and that's going to require change and a tremendous amount of collaboration. First of all, coming into a consensus within the Big Ten, but then, bringing that to our colleagues across the other conferences. All of those things need to happen together. And I think, the commissioners are committed to doing that. So a lot of work ahead over the next, several months. But a lot of decisions will be made locally. This system is built to allow institutions to make individual decisions about what programs they want to support, how much they want to invest, what student athletes get what, how many scholarships they offer, because we're eliminating scholarship limits. All of those decisions will be made institution by institution, and I think that's the right way to do it.
Tony, Adam Rittenberg with ESPN. This first time since 2015, the Big Ten's defending a national title, adding a team that played for one last year in Washington, Oregon did as well. As the playoff expands, what will constitute a successful season year to year in this league, in your view? Yeah,
the first thing I'll say is when I think about the postseason, I always start with the regular season. I want the regular season to have as many games as late as possible that are impactful. So we want as many teams competing as late in the season to earn a spot in the playoff. And I think that's the goal. I think if you think about the way postseasons work, they work in tandem with regular seasons. And so what I'm excited about is that the fact that we've expanded the playoff gives more teams in the Big Ten the opportunity to compete later in the season. That's better on site, on campus in terms of the excitement. It brings more programs into the hunt. And that's what fans want. Fans want their teams to be alive as late as possible. That's all you can hope for. And I think this format will allow us to do it. We'll see how it operates this year. I've been pretty outspoken about the fact that we really want that regular season to work and connect to our postseason. It's to get through a Big Ten regular season is not easy. And, being able to earn that based on your conference play and your record, I think is a really critical part of what the playoffs should be.
Tony. Hey, Tony. Pete Nako's over at On 3. How you doing? Wanted to ask you about roster limits. They keep being talked about in this House settlement. Do you expect that number to be at 105? And it's been reported that the Big Ten was hoping it'd be on the larger end of the spectrum.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to point to a specific number right now. I think we're close to coming to consensus with all the conferences. I'm not going to argue. I think, we were maybe on the higher end. The reporting has been accurate about that. And I think, ultimately, the goal is to come to something. I think we're doing something for the first time, right? We're going into a season where the season's going to be longer. The playoff is expanded. There's more games, and we're making decisions, and we're sort of going to have to see how it plays out. But I think we've been comfortable with the conversations. I will say in the process, because it's all sports, not just football, there's been a lot of great give and take among the commissioners. This is a really interesting balance that affects campuses differently. So, the way we approached it was to try to bring consensus from our coaching groups, our administrators, and then bring that conversation to our colleagues across the conferences. But I think that it's been a really good process, actually, with my colleagues. Thank you.
Hey, Tony. Spencer McLaughlin, Locked On Podcast Network. You talked about the 4 former Pac-12 schools and what they bring to the conference and why they're such a good fit. When you're looking at membership moves like that, is there a primary factor that you and the presidents look at as, making a school or a university desirable to add?
I think it's a holistic approach that starts with academics and the fit. That's a really big part of the legacy and the history of the Big Ten, so that's important to our leadership. Obviously, these 4 schools check those boxes very well. I think, the next factor is, being strong in multiple sports is important. And obviously the test of, really being additive in football is critical. Like, are you bringing additional value to the conference on football? There's no secret that, football is a large part of the revenue that's driven to support the whole ecosystem. We understand that. And so when you're evaluating potential members, football sort of moves to the front of the line in terms of the athletic piece.
One more, Tony.
Hey, Tony. Andy Yamashita, Seattle Times. Washington had to take out some loans against future earnings as full Big Ten members to make its budget work this year. How did that agreement come about with the Big Ten? And from your guys' perspective, why was that important and how did it come together?
Yeah, I'm not going to address, I don't have enough detail on this in the structure they've had to finance what they need to do there locally. I will say we've been supportive in understanding what they may need to make a transition. I think this was about a long-term home, and there might be some short-term things that have to be done to get them on the right footing to start. But I think they and we feel really good about the arc of where the conference is and what we can expect to deliver over time.
Commissioner Petitti, thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Bielema enters his 4th season as head coach of the Fighting Illini and returns 10 starters from last season, 5 on offense and 5 on defense. Coach Bielema will begin with your opening statement.
Thank you. First, I want to thank the Big Ten Conference for putting this all together. This is my 16th year as a head coach, and a lot of great memories on this day coming over. But I thought I'd take just a minute at the front end just to talk about college football. I've been very fortunate to have college football be a part of my life since 1988. As I've kind of evolved as a player to an assistant coach to a coordinator to a head coach now for 16 years, obviously things have changed a lot. And I think one of the most common questions I get is, Coach, at this time in your career, how are kids different? How is the game different? And there are so many things that factor into that, but one of the obviously constants is just the competitive nature, the environment, the things that make college football so special. And I think to be a head coach right now in 2024 is such a special time. I think a lot of people want to dwell on things or think about things in a negative light. I think perspective is everything, right? And there isn't a more exciting time for me in my life than to be the head coach at the University of Illinois in 2024, to have the conference, the expansion, the schedule, the world of college athletics with the portal, the NIL, the expansion in the coaching roles, duties, and responsibilities. It just literally became a reality here in the last month. I just can't express how awesome it is to have this job and to be in this opportunity and to make it be very, very special every day when I walk in that building, how awesome it is. I think college football, because of the way society is today, the players that we're able to recruit from coast to coast, not just traditional high school players anymore, but now because of the portal, you're literally, I know in the month of December, my first day I flew to Albuquerque, New Mexico, never been there before. I was going after a tackle that was in the portal from New Mexico, and I thought about that, right? And then I flew later that day to the East Coast to recruit a defensive lineman that we're pursuing, and just a different perspective, but the same thing, right? We're pursuing young men that we want to have in our program, be a part of a special place and to be a part of something special. That hasn't changed. In our conference, right, in the Big Ten Conference, I think about first coming here and sitting in meetings, and, I started with Jim Delaney as a commissioner who obviously on the forefront of a lot of different topics, different issues, to sit in meetings with him and learn and see his view and to see that environment was pretty special. Then I transitioned to the SEC, and I'll never forget the first meeting I sat in with Mike Slive at the front of the room, and to hear a commissioner lead the meetings the way he did. He had a big old cigar in his mouth, called us all on a first-name basis, and just a different type of leadership, but obviously someone that was very, very talented. And then that transition to Greg Sankey, and was able to be around Sankey several years as a head coach, and to see the way he leaded and obviously still leads today. Came to the conference, and Kevin Warren was here, and a little bit different time because it was on the beginning cusp of COVID and all the things that were going on was around Kevin. But then obviously the transition now to Tony Petitti, and you just heard his words. For me as a head coach, I've been through 5 different commissioners, and to see the leadership that he brings, to see the vision that he brings. I remember the very first Zoom call we ever had. We talked about the idea of technology, coach to player, and tablets on the sidelines. And I remember him taking note of that, calling me afterwards, and then was really the champion to get that through right now. And I think today, in today's world of college football, like that's kind of a different storyline because no one's really talking about it. But I think the addition of technology in college football this fall is going to be huge. So I just immediately saw the impact that Tony can have, not just for our conference, but our program and for football in general. So really, really excited for our conference. I know a lot of people have different views on expansion. For me as a head coach, I'm looking at a schedule this year where I play a game on the East Coast against Rutgers in Penn State, and then we play a game on the West Coast against Oregon. We play a game in the middle of our stadium in Memorial Stadium against Michigan in a 100-year anniversary game that is very, very special to have those type of games on our schedule. Not only great for our players, but for our fans. Just a really neat time to have an environment such as this in the conference. Josh Whitman over there to sit as a active head coach, to have an AD that played the game, that understands it and understands where we're coming from. Two-time academic All-American, that doesn't just happen by chance. He played in the NFL. The leadership that he brings our university, Department of Intercollegiate Athletics on the daily is just absolutely awesome to be a part of this conference, and it's particularly at the University of Illinois. Brought 3 players with us today. I think it's important to note that all 3 players that are with us here today are 3 players that have been at the University of Illinois their entire career and only at the University of Illinois. Also 3 unique stories. This is my 4th year as a head coach, but these 3 guys all have different stories. Seth Coleman was a player that was already at the University of Illinois playing when I first got there. We were going into a 6th season with us this year, and Seth was a unique story because we kind of switched schemes. He actually switched positions from a defensive end down on the ground to an outside linebacker. Has been very productive. Literally had a chance to probably jump to the NFL a year ago, decided to stay with us, get his degree and follow his education, but also return for a special year in front of us. So unique that he was already in the program with Lovey. Pat Bryant, the other player that's with us here today, the only offensive player, was actually signed on Wednesday to the University of Illinois. I didn't become the head coach until Friday. So the previous staff had recruited him. He stayed committed even during the transition, and I was able to obtain him unbelievably by not ever recruiting him. We started a journey together. He came in that first fall with us. Has been a solid player for 3 years, joined us his 4th year. Also probably had not only the opportunity to explore other opportunities in college football, but came to Illinois, stayed at Illinois, committed to Illinois in the beginning, and he's that way now. He'll actually get his degree this fall. And obviously, if as a year that I think he's capable of having, have a chance to play beyond the University of Illinois in the NFL. And then Gabe Backus is literally, truly the only player here that I actually recruited. He was a player that brought to my attention. It sounds like a joke, but I had a buddy of mine named Jack Daniels call me, who's a high school coach down in Florida, and said, "Hey, I'm scouting this opponent, this team that we're looking at, and there's this guy in the field that is pretty." Playing at a pretty high level. I believe it's time he's committed to Tulane. We sent someone down the next week, started recruiting Gabe, got him to flip his commitment, got down to us and another Orange school, Tennessee. Got down to us too at the very end. He chose us, and just thankful he did. He became a first-team freshman All-American, first defensive player to do that in Illinois history. Has been with us the last 2 years, and going into his 3rd year has set himself in a position I think very special. So I think everything gets talked about in this world about NIL. None of these guys were promised or given anything until obviously the rule change here the last year or two, but these guys chose Illinois because of Illinois, and I think it stands for what they represent. So excited to have them with us, excited about our team. I know we've made reference to a couple players that returned, but because of the portal world, even though they may have not started for us, but they've started at other places, we have 17 players that are in our either our starting lineup or what we consider to be starters in our program. 17 guys that have started more than 10 games in their college football career. We have a wide receiver, Zachary Franklin, who started over 40 games in college football. Our left tackle, J.C. Davis, has been a multiple-year starter at New Mexico. Melvin Priestley, who projects to be our starting right tackle, is a guy that has started several games in college football. Luke Altmaier started a game at Ole Miss, but also now has a 9-game start, so he's had 10 career starts in college football. So just a lot of really good, valuable experience coming into our building, as well as the addition of the guys that we had from last year getting better this spring. Really excited. They just finished an 8-week program. We open up on a Thursday against Eastern Illinois, so we actually start fall camp on Sunday, and excited to get to work with these guys and see where we can go. We got a really unique schedule. We have 3 of our first games are at home, non-conference games. We open up with Eastern Illinois, have a rematch game against Kansas, and then a game against Central Michigan before we jump to a first Big Ten game at Nebraska on a Friday night. So this schedule includes 12 games, 7 home, 5 away. First 3 are at home. Of our last 3 games, 2 of those 3 are on the road, so we got to be at our strongest at the end. We have 6 rematch games and 6 new games. We play 5 games, have a bye week, 4 games and a bye week, and then 3. A lot of different ways to look at it, but super excited the way this thing lays out. Got a Thursday game, a Friday game, and 10 Saturday games, so a little bit of everything, which is college football right now, and I think our guys are excited for it. So with that, I'll open it up for some easy questions.
Thank you, Coach. On your right.
Hi, Will Decker, LA Football Network. Coach, you have had a loaded secondary since you've been here for Illinois, and this year appears to be no different. Xavier and Miles Scott coming back as your safety duo. Can you talk about what they mean to your defense, and also talk to me about Terrence Brooks, the Texas transfer coming to Illinois, and what he's going to mean to your defensive?
Yeah, great question. Obviously, 2 years ago, we had 3 players drafted in the top 3 rounds out of the secondary, so I knew we had some people to replace there. Unfortunately, last year also was hit a little bit by injury. You know, Matt Bailey, who we had factored into our playing lineup, literally played 1 snap of college football last year and had an injury that cost him his entire season. Xavier Scott tore his ACL during the course of the year. So 2 of our main secondary players, in addition to the 3 we lost, were lost for the season. But I was super excited. Miles Scott transitioned from wide receiver to safety. Had a game-changing play in his first game as a starter against Toledo that returned for a pick 6. He got better every year. He just looks like a DB now. Just super excited about Miles Scott and Xavier Scott. On the corner, a guy that hasn't gotten a lot of outside pub, but a guy that last spring and this winter and this summer has had as good a time is Tyler Strain. He's a guy that's played a lot of football for us. He's kind of taken a step in the right direction. Super pumped to see exactly where he goes and where he's at. And then you mentioned Terrence Brooks, a guy that started, I believe, almost 20 games at Texas on a college football playoff team. A guy that when we saw him get in the portal, we contacted. It was really cool to. Everybody's got recruiting stories. I can literally sit here and go through them all. I remember all these recruiting stories like they're in my head from yesterday. But because he was still involved in classes at Texas, we talked to his dad, Chet, because he didn't want him bothering him during the finals weeks and whatnot. So we literally talked for about probably a week or 2 with just his dad, his mom, without talking to Terrence, just because that's the way they wanted to get it done, right? And then I literally was in Orlando at Johnny Newton's draft party, and we got word of Terrence being in the portal. I told Aaron Henry, who was with us, who was going to go on and do some other recruiting. I said, no, you're hopping on a plane and going to Dallas, and I want you to meet his mom and dad, even if he's not there. So we literally set the precedence there about how much of a priority he was for us. He's been a great addition in the locker room. Been a guy that's going to just focused on where he is. Also had another guy, Torrey Cox, who has started over 20 games in college football, join us as well. So young players, Mac Rasetich, a couple of young corners. Super excited to see that room get to work.
Coach Bielema, thank you so much for your time.
That's it. Beautiful. You guys are great.
Who enters his 5th season leading the Scarlet Knights. Rutgers finished with a 7-6 record overall in 2023, which culminated with a 31-24 victory in the Pinstripe Bowl. Rutgers returns 14 starters from 2023, 6 on offense and 8 on defense, highlighted by preseason selection Kyle Manungai. Coach Schiano will begin with your opening statement.
Thank you. Well, it's great to be here again. Feel blessed to be a member of the Big Ten Conference, and at Rutgers, that's something that early on in my tenure, the first time, going back to 2002, I can remember sitting in the room after my radio show with Tim Pernetti and saying, you know what, we don't belong where we are. We need to get into the Big Ten, and that started a 13-year quest, and to be in here, we feel blessed, and I really feel especially appreciative for Commissioner Petitti. The job he's done in a year, he and his staff, is just tremendous. So to Tony, thank you for everything. And I'd be remiss if I didn't thank our president, Jonathan Holloway. Between Jonathan and our board of governors, I've never felt like Rutgers, the university, the football program have ever been more vertically aligned. And that's what it takes. Make no mistake about it. From the top to the bottom, everyone has to have the same vision, and I feel like we do. Part of the greatest conference in college athletics, and excited. We have three great players here today: Tyreen Powell, Muhammad, and Kyle Manungai. And when you talk about Muhammad Toure, just a tremendous football player and even a more responsible young man, a great leader on our team. Kyle Manungai burst onto the scene last year, but we knew what we had, and as good a performer as he is on the football field, he's even a finer young man. And Tyreen Powell, I remember getting there in late December of 2019, arriving at Rutgers, and he was committed to Virginia Tech and going into his home and talking with he and his family. And he made a promise at that point that he was going to stay home and go to Rutgers, and I made him a promise that we would prepare him, develop him for his ability to reach his goals. And to have him here on our team now, recovering from surgery and going to be ready to go this fall, is huge. So 3 great representatives, 3 New Jersey kids that I'm very, very proud of. Looking forward to the season. We get started here. Our players arrive on Sunday, and away we go. We have a Thursday night start against Howard University, and looking forward to that. And again, we have a long training camp ahead of us, and one that we had to stay in the moment. You know, I talk to our players all the time. There's 2 great thieves in this world, the past and the future. And we talk about chopping the moment, chopping right now, being in the present. Well, that's what, as their leader, I need to do that. So this is a great entry to preseason camp, and with that, I'll take any questions.
First row here on your right, Coach.
Kenneth Berry, touchdowns and tangents. Coach, obviously in all your years, NFL and at Rutgers, what's it been like convincing more of New Jersey kids to stay home, especially the elite New Jersey kids, to stay home and build up Rutgers? And secondly, in regards to just your team's identity and their football character, what's easier to to fill out and identify for you going into the season?
Well, first off, you know, recruiting and retaining the best players in our backyard, New Jersey and New York, is critical to our success. But it's not just New Jersey or New York players. It's the right New Jersey or New York players. And quite honestly, I don't put a lot of stock. It's no disrespect to anybody, but the rankings and all that stuff don't mean a heck of a lot to me. We had a player by the name of Max Melton. When I came to Rutgers in 19, Max was the 22nd rated player in the state of New Jersey. Well, fast forward 4 years, he was the 43rd rated player in the world, right? He got drafted 43rd in the NFL draft. So how much those rankings mean, I'm not so sure. But I do know this: if you get the right players, the guys that are made of the right stuff, they're a cultural fit, and they have the ability. We wouldn't be talking to them if they didn't have the ability. But once you do, you find those guys that have the ability. The hard part is figuring out, are they going to be a cultural fit? And finding them in our backyard is critical. So that's something that has been going well. It's hugely critical, but something that I'm excited about. And the second part of your question, you know, who are we as a football team? I think it goes right back to our culture: family, trust, chop, right? And it doesn't vary. It's not a saying we put on the wall. It's not a shirt. It's how we try to live. And I think it's the greatest tool that I can send a young man into the real world with. Family, forget about me, I love you. Right? We believe love is sacrifice, the ability to sacrifice for others with no expectation of something in return. You know, not a lot of that going on these days, right? To do that for your teammates and for your coaches, that's special, right? Trust, 100% honesty, and doing what you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it. Right? Easy to say, really hard to do. And then chop, what I mentioned, the ability to stay in the present moment and focus on exactly that which you have to do. Right? Don't let those thieves get you. The past and the future, they get you off your mark, and we work really hard in teaching that. So when we say FTC, that's more than something we put on our helmet or something we put on our wristband. It's a way that we try to live life and equip these guys to go out into the real world and be able to be great husbands, great fathers, and productive members of society. So if that, you know, what is our team? It's that FTC.
All right, Coach Lynn Harrington with Stay Alive Power 5. How you doing today?
Doing well. How are you?
I am all right. So last season, you led Rutgers to its first winning campaign since 2014. However, with the Big Ten expanded with 4 teams from the West Coast, how do you keep Rutgers from being a needle in a haystack approaching this new season?
Well, look, I don't try to hide from who we are or what we are. Right? We've been playing football longer than anybody else on the planet. Yet we haven't been playing at this level very long. You go back to the mid-'80s when we really made the jump to major college football. So relatively young, but it's time. It's time to get going. It's time to make a mark. And as I've talked to our people about, we've been filling the pipeline since we got there with quality young men, quality football players. And I believe now the pipeline's close to being full. Although some of it is young still, right? We have an experienced group at the end of the pipeline. We're going to have a lot of NFL players that come out of this season. And to me, anytime we've had great teams at Rutgers, they've been made up of NFL players. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited about it. I think that we have the guys that can lead our program. At some point in the last 18 months, it went from a coach-led program to a player-led program. And to me, that's always been where the program really begins to shift and it begins to get results. So that's what we need to do. We need to stay focused on the moment right here, but certainly looking forward to the season ahead and the new people that are coming into the league. It's just great. I've always said this, the Big Ten, why do I love the Big Ten Conference? To me, it's that sweet spot, that intersection of elite academics with elite football. That's what makes us special. And it's still college football. I don't care, you talk about NIL, you talk about revenue sharing, all those things. It's college football. They're getting an education, and they're getting it at some of the most elite universities in the country.
Dustin Schutte, Sports Illustrated. Greg, at the NFL Scouting Combine, we talked to a lot of different former Big Ten defensive players. They said that Kyle Monangai was maybe the toughest player they went against in the conference. What characteristics set him apart from other running backs or other players in this league?
Well, I think what Kyle does best, he has an incredible patience to view, to watch, to wait. But when he makes the decision to go, he's a violent runner. He's violent the way he plays. He's violent with his feet and his legs. He doesn't stop. And the one thing that I love is to watch him run. I'd say 98% of the time he's falling forward. He's falling in the right direction. And that's a little bit of who our identity of our football team is we're going to get knocked down, but let's make sure we're falling in the right direction and we get up quickly and get back at it.
Hey, Coach. Will Decker, LA Football Network. You guys made a huge jump defensively last year into the top 20 in total defense, and you returned 10 of your 13 starters from the position group. I was wondering if you could tell me what makes this group special and what makes you think they could build upon last year's success and ultimately have a better ranking than they did last year.
Well, I do. I love our defense. These guys have been in the program now for 4 or 5 years. We're a developmental program, and I know people say that. We are truly, that's what we are. We take guys and we work really hard over a period of time, and they get to be really good players. And that's what I feel we've done now. Coach Joe Harris-Simiak, who's our defensive coordinator, has done a phenomenal job since he arrived. I think we have a great chemistry with the coaches and players, not only on the defensive side of the ball, but Coach Shiraka on the offensive side of the ball as well. I, as a head coach, have not ever been in a position where I feel this comfortable, where our two coordinators lead those units. It allows me to do my job as the head coach. I'm very involved in special teams, and certainly defense is something that I grew up on, but Joe runs the defense, and he does a heck of a job.
Coach David Gold, Inside NU. You guys have to travel across the country this Friday, one of the Friday nights this year to play USC. How does your experience as a head coach in the NFL scheduling cross-country travel prepare you for this new type of Big Ten season?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel fortunate that we had that experience in my time at Tampa. We played the Western Conferences a couple times, and we played up in Seattle, and those are long trips. Tampa to Seattle's about as long as New Jersey to LA. So certainly with the time and all those things, those are details that you work on. You use specialists to help set up your plan. But at the end of the day, you got to go out there and you got to block and tackle. You got to throw and catch. You got to play the game of football. And I think sometimes people lose sight. They get all caught up in the semantics of the trips and things. It's still football. And that's what our focus will be. Now, we're incredibly fortunate, again, to have these teams coming into our league, to go out and play our first time on the West Coast, playing the Coliseum. I've coached there before. That's a special place, so we're looking forward to that.
Questions for Coach Schiano? On your right, Coach.
Coach John Rhodes, voice of college football. About 10 years ago, a little bit over that, you built Rutgers into a huge powerhouse in the Big East Conference, and now you're here in the Big Ten trying to do the same thing. Can you talk about the way things are similar to building them back then, but they're different now?
Yeah, well, I think college football is so different now, right, with the changes that have happened even in the last I heard one of the coaches down in the SEC said college football has changed just about every 6 months since he took the job. It was Billy down at Florida, and I'll tell you what, he's right. I mean, it's changed very often lately, And the ability to adapt, to pivot, to make changes is critical as a college football coach. For a long time, it was very, very similar. And then it made a big move. But the Big East was an 8-team league, right? And it was a good league. There was some really good football being played. But we're talking about the Big Ten, the best college football conference in the country. And to be a member of that, like I said earlier, it's a blessing. It really is to be a member of this league. And look forward to continuing to build till we get to a point where we are in the mix for the championship. That's what we're building for. I didn't come out of retirement to go to a bowl game, and I came out of retirement to win a championship at Rutgers, and hopefully we'll do that.
Coach Schiano, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Head coach is Wisconsin's Luke Fickell. Fickell, who enters his second full season as the Badgers head coach in 2024, led Wisconsin to a 7-6 record in 2023 and returns 10 starters. Coach, we'll begin with your opening statement.
Well, I'll start by obviously saying thank you. Thank you to everybody that's here today for all that you guys do for obviously promoting our programs, obviously our conference, and to me, most importantly, our young men. Not just for today, obviously, but the next 3 days. This has grown. So there's a lot that you guys have invested as well, and so obviously thank you for all that is that you guys do. Thank you to Commissioner Petitti for his leadership and his vision. Obviously taking our conference into this new world and this newfound college football and the landscape. I know for myself and for everybody within our conference that we have the utmost confidence in what it is that he's doing and where he's taking us, and his leadership, and being in the forefront of what this is going to look like here as we continue to move forward in all of college athletics and in particular college football. And then I want to say thank you to our AD Chris McIntosh for his friendship and his partnership that's so critical to me as we continue to grow our program and continue to take the University of Wisconsin into this new landscape as well. I know we're in great hands, not just as a football program, but our entire athletic department. You've heard so much, and you will continue to hear so much about, obviously, this ever-changing landscape and the things that which all of us are, not say worried about, concerned about, but understand is coming down the pipe here in another year, and it's so critical to the leadership of our conference, obviously, in the leadership within each one of our universities and programs is to me even more critical today than it ever has been. And so for those guys to be the example for what it is that we got to continue to do within our own programs, I know that we're in great hands, and I appreciate them. I'm excited to be here to talk to and to lead the University of Wisconsin in year 2. I'm excited to not be the new guy, right? Not the new guy because it's year 2, but not be the new guy because everybody's new. Even Coach Ferentz, who's been here for quite a while, is new to this, what I call coast-to-coast Big Ten. So we're all kind of newbies in some ways into what this all entails and what this all is going to bring upon us as we continue to move forward. For me, I've been a Big Ten guy my entire life. I've been fortunate enough, obviously, to grow up in Big Ten country and to learn about the histories and the traditions and the rivalries since I was a young kid. And then to have the great fortunes for myself to be able to actually play and then coach within the Big Ten for 20-some years. And then only to learn more about the histories and the traditions and the rivalries of being a part of them firsthand. But I can honestly tell you that I'm more excited today. I'm more excited about the things that are in front of us for the University of Wisconsin, for our football program, and for myself in particular, about what these new history we can create, what these new traditions are that we can create with these new rivalries we are going to be, creating with what I call this coast-to-coast Big Ten. I think it's incredibly exciting to be a part of. And I know for some, traditionalists with all the things that have, that I've always understood about the Big Ten, that we're not losing those things, we're only growing. We're only gaining, we're only starting to add to some new histories and traditions and rivalries that I think are going to make our sport that much better. It's 39 days till we kick off, 39 days till Friday, August 30th, when we kick off in Camp Randall, and that's really exciting. There's more work to be done in the next 39 days for us and our team and our program than really over the last 6 months. And I mean that because it's so unique as we start to close in on the opening kickoff. When you go to camp, there's so much that is created and so much that is developed within the chemistry and the culture of your program that it is incredibly critical in these next 39 days. But I can tell you this, that everybody within our program, me included, are incredibly excited about putting all of our work and all of our dedication and all of our commitment to the ultimate test, which is obviously August 30th, Friday night in Camp Randall. That's when we truly get to measure all the things that we put in, all the time we put in. We get to really test ourselves where you're tested the most. And for us and for me, that is incredibly exciting. I know this, that the 2024 Wisconsin Badger team is about a lot of things. And we've got a lot of things to continue to develop in these next 39 days, but the number one most important thing, and the thing that I'm going to stress and continue to talk about here today, as well as we get into camp, is about leadership. And as I reflect a little bit on last year and all the things that you go through, not that it's just year one, but when you hit adversity, when you go through the ups and the downs and you really reflect upon it, the first thing for me that it comes back to is leadership. And our ability since January 1 to attack every aspect of the leadership within our program has been really critical. And another one of those things that's going to be put to the test. And I know this, that it starts with me. Obviously, the leadership starts right there. But it also permeates throughout our entire program. And it's probably the biggest reason why the three guys are with us today to represent our program and our university are because of the leadership, because of their ability to step up, and in particular to step up last year when we were going through a stretch of time that was very difficult. And it was the most adversity, I think, that obviously we had hit all year, and maybe even that they had hit in a long time. And for those guys to stand up, to stand tall, to really kind of take ownership in what it is that we needed to do to push, develop, and continue to grow the leadership within our own program in the midst of those times was really important. It gave us an opportunity to start that growth in the last couple weeks of our season last year, leading through bowl prep and then obviously even in a bowl game, that it was really kind of fell on the shoulders of these guys. And to be honest with you, that's what I'm proud of. I thank them for their, obviously their resiliency and their commitment to, at that time, step up. Not wait till January 1, not wait till we can create these little leadership groups and things. They were the guys that kind of at the forefront of getting some things turned around in the midst of, a tough stretch for us. And I'll introduce those guys. So starting off with, on the defensive side of the ball, we have Hunter Wohler here from Muskego, Wisconsin. Hunter's a four-year guy that's a senior for us this year. He's a returning starter at safety. He led our team in tackles last year, and I think he's maybe the third leading tackler returning in college football, and expecting him to have an incredible year. Jake Cheney, who's from Cape Coral, Florida, Lehigh High School, where he played for his father. He's our starting middle linebacker, and Jake is, I would say, he's the emotion, he's the attitude of our defense and probably our entire team and program. And then Jack Nelson. Jack's our starting left tackle. He's a fifth-year guy. He's a senior. And Jack is a legacy. Jack is, born and bred. He's from Stoughton, Wisconsin, right down the street. His dad played at Wisconsin. Obviously, Jack's a starting left tackle. His younger brother plays at Wisconsin. Jack is what epitomizes what it looks like and what it means to be a Badger. So those three guys will represent us today, our program, our university. There's a lot of other guys that could represent us that have stepped up in this time for us. And these guys obviously are the ones that will represent us today. But I think for us in particular, moving forward, I talked about its leadership. We've pinpointed some things that are really, really critical to the growth of our team and our program. And a lot of that falls, like I said, on the shoulders of me, but also within the shoulders of the leaders of our program. And the challenge has been for them is to understand in this leadership that we got to find the standards that give us an opportunity to grow. And there can be a million different standards that what you say is important to your program, but I know for us, these guys embody the standards. They're the ones that understand that they're going to create what that standard looks like. They're going to be the ones that set the bar to what that standard is, and then they're ultimately going to be the ones that uphold what that standard is going to be. These are the standards that we know and believe give us the best opportunity to continue to grow our program and put us in a position to play for a championship, because that's the mentality, that's the objective, and that's what University of Wisconsin and our football program deserves. I'll open it up for questions.
Thank you, Coach. On your right side.
Hey, Coach. Will Decker, LA Football Network. You guys added a very talented transfer portal quarterback in Tyler Van Dyke. How is he meshing with the offense throughout the offseason? And second part of the question, Hunter and Ricardo returned to this defense, kind of leading and spearheading that group. What do they mean to the locker room, and what do they mean to the other guys within the room on the defensive side?
Well, Tyler Van Dyke, I could say a lot of great things about Tyler. I think the greatest thing is Tyler has walked in and embraced everything with our program. You know, understood where he was, what he was walking into year one, the ups and the downs, the things that that we needed from him. He's got a humility behind himself when he walked in the door, that he was willing and understood that he was going to have to earn everything. He understood that it was going to be a battle. There weren't going to be keys that were just handed to him. But I think the greatest thing about Tyler is his ability to say, I need to refocus. I understand what his goals were individually. He knew that there were things that he needed to continue to grow to do, and he had experienced an incredible amount of adversity in his 3 years of starting down at Miami. And for me, if you said what's the greatest thing that you liked when you were identifying Tyler Van Dyke, I would say all the adversity that he had been through, the ability for him to handle 3 different coordinators, the ability for him to go from the East Coast down to South Florida, win a starting position, have the ups and the downs, and be able to continue to stand tall and have the confidence to continue to play and to play at the level at which you expect to play. So he's done a phenomenal job, and I expect him to continue to grow in his leadership role as we enter this next 39 days. For Hunter, obviously, he's here today. He's the leading tackler on our team. He's third returning, I think, tackler in college football. There's a thing of being from Muskego. There's a thing of growing up a Badger fan. The thing that means some things a little bit different to Hunter and his pride in all the things that we do, not just as a team this year or not just as a team last year, but in the past, the present, and ultimately the future. And I think you got to have those kinds of leaders within your program that understand that the future of what it is that he's leaving is every bit as important as the now. And he represents that. And then Rico's a guy that I don't think get talked about enough. I let Rico speak for himself, but I know we have the utmost confidence in Rico, and a guy that, obviously had 7 picks last year, but for a guy that by nature as a field corner doesn't get as much action, he's one of the most productive guys that I've been around at playing that position in particular. And he went through an off-season shoulder surgery, which, maybe gave us an opportunity to bring him back for another year when he had some options that he could have, tried the next level. But he understands that, where he is and where he wants to be and where he fits in the big picture of things. And we need to continue to make him a big part of what it is that we do.
Coach Fickell, thank you so much for your time.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Our next coach is Northwestern's David Braun, who was named Big Ten Coach of the Year after leading the 2023 Wildcats to an 8-5 record, capped off by a win over Utah in the Las Vegas Bowl. Coach Braun, welcome back, and we'll begin with your opening statement.
Good afternoon. Excited to be back at Big Ten Media Days. Honored to be leading Northwestern football into the future. Really proud of what our team was able to accomplish in the 2023 season. Say that to also say very excited and thrilled for what's ahead of this program and attacking some of the challenges that exist within navigating a new time in college football and finding ways to keep the Cats at our best as we continue to move forward. Our team has had an incredible offseason, a great spring ball, capped off by a 6-week training cycle this summer, and really excited to report to camp here in the next week and a half and get going on 2024. In a rapidly evolving landscape of college football, there are challenges for sure. But with those challenges also comes opportunity. And, as we attack these opportunities, the things that us as a program are going to prioritize are making sure that we continue to support our student athletes and further support our student athletes moving forward, develop our young men holistically, support our young men and absolutely prioritize making sure that our young men earn a Northwestern degree, leveraging our best qualities at Northwestern in a new landscape to compete and win Big Ten championships, all the while doubling down on two things, making sure that we stay true to Northwestern values and continue to build off of and embody what this program has stood for decades. I do want to take this opportunity to introduce the three young men that are with us here today. These three young men were absolutely critical in the success that we experienced in 2023. These young men embody character, courage, leadership, competitive spirit, and a level of gratitude for being at a place like Northwestern. Cam Porter, returning starting running back, returning captain for us, has had an incredible offseason. So excited for Cam to operate within a new offense under the leadership of Zach Lujan. Chris Foster, his running backs coach, does an exceptional job. Cam is part of leading a room that has some of the best depth on our team right now and embodies everything that our program's about. So excited for him to have an incredible senior year. Our offense will go as our running game goes. The opportunities that we create in the passing game will be directly reflected on what we're able to establish on the ground. And Cam is certainly going to be the leader of that running back room, that all pieces of that room will play a critical role in the way that we establish that. The second young man that's with us today, Xander Mueller, starting linebacker for us. Xander, when I arrived on campus, interesting story about Xander. I had an opportunity to recruit Xander in my time at North Dakota State for a short time before the Cats offered Xander. But someone that I've admired from afar for a long, long time. When I arrived in January, of 2023, was excited to see Xander developing in the program. But the growth that we've seen out of Xander over the course of the last year and a half and what he was able to accomplish on the field last season, I'd say is nothing short of a breakout season for him. I would argue he is unquestioned one of the best linebackers in the Big Ten and in the country, and so excited for him to continue to lead that room, continue to develop, and continue to lead our defense. And lastly, A.J. Henning. A.J., it is a good down for the Cats when A.J. Henning has the ball in his hands, whether that be a special teams down or an offensive down. The versatility that A.J. embodies, the way that A.J. brings a certain electric component, explosiveness to our offense and our special teams game. Some of the things that he was able to demonstrate throughout the season last year in our bowl game against Utah. Again, we are at our best when A.J. Henning has the ball in his hands. So proud of what he's done as a member of our team only for 2 seasons, but excited for all that is ahead for him, what's ahead for these 3 young men, and for what is ahead of our program in 2024. With that, I'll turn it over to questions.
On your left, Coach.
Matt Shelton, Northwestern Rivals. Coach, this event last year, you had been interim for about 2 weeks. You were the first to publicly address questions about the hazing scandal. your daughter was about to be born. Now being back this year, how different has this summer and this pending season been for you, both personally and professionally?
Yeah, no, it's been really unique. A year first, Matt, and going through a first cycle as a head coach. A lot to learn. We have a great staff around me. Excited about where our team is at, and personally, it's been incredible. Our family's gotten settled in. We love the area. Our boys love school. They're staying busy with baseball and camps. Very grateful to be here at Northwestern and having had an opportunity to settle in.
Coach, last summer, the program was in turmoil, for a lack of a better word. You inherit the program 1-11 the previous year. You guys win 7 more games in the previous year, 8-5, get a bowl win. Coach, I want to ask you, who were some of the players in your locker room that allowed you guys to reach the success you guys had? Because a lot of people were counting you guys out last year, and you guys proved the world wrong.
Yeah, not to deflect the question. I mean, it took all 103 that chose to stay, but the young men I just mentioned. I mean, Cam Porter, returning captain. I just had a chance to talk with some other people earlier today. Cam Porter may be one of the most impressive young men I have ever been around in my entire life. He's consistent. He's competitive. He builds other people up. He's self-reflective, and he has a thirst for just continuous growth. Bryce Gallagher, who's no longer with us, pursuing his NFL dreams, but I mean, Bryce just had a certain quality about him where he was able to step in the room, step in the locker room, command the room, and just demand the best out of himself and others. I mean, that's just to name a couple, but there is no doubt in my mind the reason that we found success in 2023 was because the leadership on our team. It was a player-led team, and the unique challenge for this 2024 collection of coaches and players is this group collectively hasn't done anything yet. Can we find the same level of leadership within our team? And I believe it exists. I've seen it, but we got to put that into practice in fall camp.
On your left side, Coach.
Ethan Siegel, Inside on You. Hi, Coach. You mentioned that first coaching cycle, and now as you enter that second year, this offseason, able to have a full offseason without a lot of the chaos from last year. You're able to bring in some of your own staff, some transfers. Can you kind of talk about what this offseason has looked like in terms of building a David Braun program and what that looks like rather than just inheriting what came before you?
Yeah, I think the first thing I'll say is, it's not a David Braun program. It's our program. It's our players' program. It's our alumni's program. But really having to be self-reflective on what we want that to look like moving forward, especially in a changing landscape. And at the end of the day, it comes back to what I mentioned in my opening remarks about staying true to our values at Northwestern, and staying true to our objectives at prioritizing the student-athlete experience, prioritizing what the value of a Northwestern degree means, and leveraging all those things to find ways to create competitive advantage that leads to Big Ten championships. I'm proud of what we did in strength and conditioning in our offseason. I'm proud of what we've done in recruiting. And I'm really excited about the way that this staff and this team is starting to gel. I think where I've been most critical on the program is the things that I oversee. There's so many areas that I need to continue to grow in as a head coach, and I'm excited to do that.
Kenneth Berry, touchdowns and tangents. Coach, how do you navigate not knowing what you don't know as a first-time head coach? And secondly, what was the process like regaining the trust of the parents and the players who chose to stay after everything that happened at Northwestern?
Yeah, how you navigate it is you control the controllables. Very, very thankful for the leadership of Tony Petitti. Very, very thankful for the group of head coaches here in the Big Ten as we navigate this together. But the only thing you can do is control the controllables and invest in doing a great job in recruiting your class of 2025. Do your best with roster management. Worry about your current team. To your second question, so much of it came down to just spending as much one-on-one time with our players as I potentially could, finding connection points with our parents when possible, getting on Zoom calls. I've been very glowing about my admiration for our players, but I'll go on to say a critical factor in the continued strength of our team has been the support of our players' parents. I mean, that is a special group. Just come hang out with that group on a tailgate this fall. You'll find a very special group that's incredibly supportive of the program, and we'll continue to be moving forward.
Hi, David. Scott Docterman with The Athletic. I wanted to ask you about your new hire, offensive coordinator, Zach Lugin. When did you become aware of him and what he was able to do, and how do you think he'll transform your offense?
Yeah, I got very familiar with Zach competing against him. Some of my largest headaches over the years were trying to defend his offenses. To be very blunt, I was a little resistant to the North Dakota State, South Dakota State rivalry that exists, a little resistant to even exploring Zach as an option. We hired Christian Smith as our D-line coach the previous cycle, one of the best D-line coaches in the country. Became open to talking with Zach, and in our first conversation, I knew he was someone that we were going to be having further conversations. I've been so impressed with his ability to really identify the strengths of the personnel, the strength of your team, the strength of the individuals, the people within your program, and tailor the scheme to fit that. And that's what we need at Northwestern. What he was able to establish at South Dakota State was really, really impressive, and was very excited to see the growth that we saw within that unit over spring ball.
Coach Braun, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Purdue returns 11 starters from last season, including 6 on the offensive side and 5 on defense. Coach Walters, we'll begin with your opening statement.
Awesome. Man, it's good to be back here at the Big Ten Media Days. It's good to see familiar faces. And man, what a difference a year makes. A lot has changed throughout the course of this past year. Our building looks different. We've made upgrades aesthetically to the weight room. We've got a dining hall that'll be a lot more convenient for our student athletes. That's right outside the building, right there, attached to the stadium. We've got new uniforms that represents a new era in Purdue football that hopefully pays homage to some things of the past and gives a modern look on the future. We also got 37 new players added to the roster. 27 of those were enrolled in January, which I thought was very important and strategic on the staff's standpoint to get them inundated with the culture, with the camaraderie of the locker room and getting to know each other. And hopefully that'll pay dividends this fall. We've also learned a lot as a program in a year. We've learned our strengths and weaknesses as a staff, learned our strengths and weaknesses as a roster and try to address those. We also know now what the standards and expectations are on how we operate on a day-to-day basis. Also learned as a program how we respond to adversity. When we hit adverse moments a year ago, nobody blinked. They just put their head down and dove into the process and worked hard. I've also learned a great deal as individually going through my first year as a head coach. I understand now how to better serve the team in the use of my time. Obviously, my expertise is on the defensive side of the ball, and as a head coach, you wear a lot of hats. But going through last season, knowing how much I can dive into the X's and O's and how much I need to be head coach, that balance is something that I've learned. I've learned how much I love this university and the West Lafayette community. This is a fan base and a support system that is unmatched. We've got great leadership and our president and our athletic director. And this community, West Lafayette, they show up and they show out unconditionally. And what that looks like is, having the highest season ticket sales since 2007 up to this point already. I've also learned that everyone in the building has a chip on their shoulder that grows by the day. And because of that, I can't wait for this fall. So with that, I'll open the floor up for questions.
On your right, Coach.
Kyle Smedley with the Indy Star. I just wanted to ask about expansion. First, just
your thoughts on the 4 new teams, and then also with it being announced that Indianapolis is going to be the site of the Big Ten championship through 2028, about the Big Ten's commitment to stay in Indiana for the foreseeable future as well.
Yeah, I think to answer your first question, anytime you add 4 teams like an Oregon, a USC, a UCLA, and a Washington to the Big Ten conference, it's just going to add to the prestige, add to the strength of the Big Ten conference. Those are great storied programs with great coaching staffs and great players. I'm looking forward to competing against them year in and year out. As far as the playing the Big Ten championship game, staying here in Indy, I just think it adds to the tradition of the Big Ten conference. And obviously I'm a little biased, but this is a great venue and a great location for a championship game.
Coach Lynn Harrington, State Line Power 5. How you doing today?
Pretty good. How you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. So as you know, the Big Ten preseason media poll was released the other day and had the Boilermakers dead last. How are you going to use that as fuel for motivation for the team, posted up in the locker room? I mean, what do you plan on using that as this fall?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as much as you try not to, read things and opinions of your program or yourself or your players, you still hear it, right? If you're not reading it, your folks are, or your friends are, or it gets back to you. So I'd be naive not to address it with the team and not talk about the elephant in the room. But I did mention, a large chip on everybody's shoulder in that building, and 18 out of 18 is a large reason why.
Dustin Schutte, Sports Illustrated. A 2-part question for you, Ryan. You talked a lot about the things that you learned in your first season. What was the biggest lesson that you learned in that first year? And then I've given you a year since I asked this question last year. Have you got to Triple X and tried the peanut butter burger yet?
As far as lessons I've learned in that first season, I'd be up here all day talking about them, right? There are things that you anticipate and that you plan for, but nothing can prepare you for real-time problems that occur and how fast and how urgently you need to come up with solutions. And as far as the Triple X, I have been there. I have not done the peanut butter burger yet. It's just just doesn't add up in my mind on how that works together. But I have been there for breakfast on a couple of occasions, and they do a great job.
On your right.
Spencer McLaughlin, Locked On Podcast Network. Hudson Card last year just under 59% completion for your offense. Is that a number that you're comfortable with as the head coach? And if you wanted to go higher, how do you accomplish that this season?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we want that number to be higher and fully anticipate that it will be. If you look at Hudson's career and where he's headed, last season was his first time being a full-time starter at the collegiate level at quarterback. And you couple that with being in a brand new system for the first time, with a brand new environment and all the things that go into it. Year 2, you generally see a big jump from an experience standpoint. And so we've seen that in terms of his command of the offense and what we're trying to get accomplished there schematically. You've seen him embrace his role as a leader on the team, and we've added some pieces around him to protect him and guys to throw the ball to. So I fully anticipate him having a big jump from year 1 to year 2 in the program.
Good morning, Coach. Kenneth Barry, Touchdowns and Tangents. Obviously, Purdue in the last couple of years has had somewhat of an explosive offense. They've sent guys to the league. So when you think about that standard from what past players have done, how are you kind of incorporating that into what you want to see from your offense? But also, you said you're a defensive-minded head coach. How do you kind of shift that perspective within the program?
Yeah, I am like the head coach though, right? So like I understand that the quarterback position is the most important position in sports, period, right? So on offense, we try to protect that guy and allow him to have success. And then defensively, we try to disrupt him, right? But as far as having explosive offenses, I think we have the makings of that at Purdue. We did send a running back to the NFL in the draft this past season. You know, we had back to two guys that had over 500 yards rushing, which hadn't been done at Purdue in a long time. You know, in Big Ten conference games, you know, we're an air raid offense that led Big Ten conference games in rushing. And so I just think that speaks to our staff's creativity and the compromise that you sort of have with, you know, identifying and adhering to your philosophy, but also meeting the roster in the middle and trying to do things that sets them up for success. And so, again, I'm excited about where we're at, where we're headed, and I can't wait for this fall.
Hey, Coach, Kyle with Sports Report Media. Talk about the big run that Purdue had, Coach Painter and the fans, and how that carries over to you with all the enthusiasm that Coach Painter and his team brought, and now here we are, football season ready for you.
Yeah, you know, it was awesome to see in real time. I think it gives a tangible example of what is attainable and what is possible at Purdue from an athletic standpoint. You know, we got to see firsthand the run that they made and the type of production and success they have year in and year out. So I think for our players and for our staff and for our community, it shows you what is possible from an athletic standpoint in West Lafayette at Purdue University.
Coach, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks.
Ryan Day. The Buckeyes finished the 2023 season with an 11-2 overall record and returned 15 starters, including a conference-leading 4 Big Ten preseason honorees. Coach Day, will begin with your opening statement.
Good afternoon, everybody. Honored to be here today, and I just want to first off, thank Tony for his leadership. Probably heard that from some of the other coaches already, but it's been significant as we've gone over the last couple months and where we're going, and had some great meetings out in LA, and certainly it was easy to see leaving those meetings his leadership and how strong he's been and where we're heading with all the changes that are going on across college football. And so I had great conversations with him and very excited about our leadership in the Big Ten as we move forward. It's an exciting time right now to be at Ohio State, and as we've transitioned from Gene to Ross as our athletic director, it's been great to spend time with Ross, and certainly want to welcome him into the family again, and really know that he's got a great group behind him, and we're very, very excited that he's going to be our leader in the athletic department as we move forward in the 36 sports and as we head into the fall. But it's been great spending time with him in this transition and as he takes over for Gene. But he's got great experience. He's already connected well with a lot of our players and a lot of the staff that's there, and I think he's got a really bright future at Ohio State. I just want to quickly mention, as you head into the preseason this time of year, it's a funky time because you go from spending a little bit of time with your family to now going into the preseason, and my family means so much to me as we head into the season. I just want to quickly mention my family, certainly my wife Nina, and what she's done for me, and this going into our 6th year as a head coach at Ohio State as we head into the season. She's been an unbelievable rock and been unbelievably supportive along the way. And my 3 children, RJ heads into his sophomore year. He'll be playing quarterback at DeSales High School, and excited to see what that brings for him. My wife Nina will be the most stressed out person in Columbus as it starts at about noon on Friday, goes into Friday Night Football, and then we have the game on Saturday. So there's a lot that goes with that. And then and my 2 daughters, Grace and Nia, who working hard at basketball, and certainly had an opportunity to spend a bunch of time with them this summer. But as we head into the preseason, it's exciting preseason for us. It's been a great summer. The team that we have right now is working with urgency. They're working with purpose. It started with the guys that decided to come back, and 3 of them are here today, but it was very difficult to name 3 guys to come. I mean, it's virtually impossible to do, but we did it. We figured, these 3 guys are a great representation of who we have, but by no means do they stick out more than the other guys. There's 12 guys who decided that they wanted to come back and play this year. They wanted to forego their opportunity to go in the NFL and come back and leave something behind at Ohio State. And since they made that decision through the winter and the spring, now in the summer as we head into preseason camp, you can see it. You can see the look in their eye. It's a special group, and then the pieces that we've added. We're very, very excited right now, and it's a fun group to be around every day. Coach Mick's been doing a great job, and some of the workouts we've had this summer. But now as we head into the preseason camp, it's going to be critically important to build the foundation. Every year, you rebuild the team. You don't just jump back to where you were the year previous. And we're going to work really hard to have a physical preseason camp and build that foundation, as that's going to be what's going to be the difference in the end. So Denzel Burke is one of the first guys that are here. Denzel has already had a tremendous career at Ohio State and made that decision, like one of the other guys, to come back and play his senior year. Denzel has already played a high level of football, but he's going to be one of the best corners in America. He's shown great leadership. He's made great strides as a player, but also just in his maturity. We're talking on the plane ride over here about how you approach preseason camp a lot different now in his point of his career than you would as a freshman. And he's much more intentional with everything he does. And I think he has a chance to be the best corner in America next season. Emeka Egbuka, can't say enough about who Emeka is. Emeka's an old soul. Since he's been here, he's been a warrior. He has his degree. He had to make his decision on whether he wanted to go to the NFL or not. He decided to come back with the degree in hand. And, we didn't get a chance to see the best version of him last year with his ankle injury, but we're seeing it now. And he's always been a leader. He had been a leader since he walked in the building as a freshman, but now he gets an opportunity to do that as a senior. And then last is Jack Sawyer. A lot of people lead different ways. Jack leads by his actions. It started off by being one of the first guys to commit to me in the class as a head coach, but also and then recruiting that class, but also deciding to come back this year. He was one of the first. Sat down with he and his dad Lyle and said they have unfinished business here, and they started to get the guys to come back and build that group together that wanted to come back and leave a legacy behind. And so, being a Buckeye means a lot to him, being from Ohio. And, he's going to continue to lead. He's playing his best football, did at the end of the season, and will continue to. Had a great offseason. So these three guys are here. They're unbelievable representatives of Ohio State, and proud that they're part of our team. The last thing I'll just say, and then I'll open up to questions, is just that, our focus is on this preseason. It's the next step. And, sure, a lot of coaches will say it. You can't really, focus on what happened the year before. You can't get too worried about what's coming down the road. But we all know there's a lot of, noise and a lot of hype around this team. And what we can't do is, let those distractions, grab our focus from what we need to do day in and day out. We know it's going to be a long season, but we got to have a great preseason. We got to have a physical preseason. We got to lay that foundation for what's going to come as we head throughout the season. But we're very, very excited about our guys. We have great experience in that locker room and some great talent. But it's going to take more than talent. It's going to take all the no-talent issues to get to where we want to be and reach our goals. So I appreciate everybody, and we'll open it up to questions.
On your left, Coach.
Dave Biddle, 24/7 Sports. Hi, Ryan, over here. I want to ask you about your offensive line entering camp. How do you feel about your O-line overall entering camp? And then, in addition to that, who do you expect will be your right guard, or who are the guys competing there at right guard?
Yeah, as you know, the O-line has been the area that we've been really, locked in on. I think that, coming out of the summer, their bodies look different. I think, you'll see them next week. We have some of those open camps or days of camp. They look good. Mick's done a great job with them. They've had a good summer, but we know how important that is. I mean, this team is going to go as the offensive line goes. This team is going to go as the defensive line goes. And so we know that how important the offensive line is going to be. So I think that some guys have really stepped up. Josh Fryer, to me, has had an unbelievable summer. Donnie's been much a leader. But when it comes to that right guard position, I think you're going to see, Carson Hisman and Seth, they both can swing between center and guard, but then Tegra Shabola is someone that has had another guy who stepped up and had a good summer, Luke Montgomery. We feel like we have some decent guys in there that can, fill that role, but we got to go put it on the field now and see how this training and everything that's happened this summer is going to translate to being on the field.
On your right side, Coach.
Hey, Ryan. Dylan Davis, Delaware Gazette. I know you've talked about depth at receiver being a big part of what you need to accomplish in the preseason. I guess where do you feel you're at with that depth and behind Emeka, who's kind of starting to emerge in that 4 to 5 member group?
Yeah, it's a great question. I feel like we have a good, we're kind of top heavy there, and then okay, where is 4, 5, 6, and 7? Brandon Ennis, you feel Brandon Ennis when you're out there. So this is going to be a great opportunity for him to do that. Jaden Ballard is another guy who's been in the program a while. We need him to step up and make an impact. He is a down-the-field threat with great speed. And, again, this is somebody that's been in our program now. And I think that's another part of this team that we have is, 2, 3, 4. These guys have been in the program for a while now. So there's been a lot of built-up, springs and summers and practices and development along the way. And so we need JB to step up. And he's been charged with that challenge along the way. Bryson Rogers is another guy that gives us some playmaking ability in the slot. He's gotten bigger. He's gotten stronger. He needs to continue to play that way because he has the ability to run routes and get open against anybody in the country, in my opinion. Kojo Antwi is somebody that has to step up as well. And then we have some other young guys in there that have an opportunity to do that. So, that 4, 5, 6, and 7 is going to be critical. In solidifying the wide receiver depth. But that's going to have to happen this preseason.
Me? Yep. Tim May, Letterman Row, on3.com. Ryan, I was just wondering, have you told your team to embrace these expectations for this season? And number two, in your mind, how legit are these expectations?
Well, I think anytime you're at Ohio State, we know you're going to have expectations, but there's always going to be chatter. There's always going to be noise, and it's our job to block all those things out and just focus on what really matters. And I think especially this time of year, the easy thing to do is focus on the goals, focus on the end of the season, but that's really is a waste of time if we don't build the foundation right now. Now, our guys, they know what the expectation is. You've heard some of them say, what their goals are. We're not going to shy away from that. We want to win the rivalry game, be right in this stadium right here, win this Big Ten championship, win a national championship. We know that. But at the same time, that can't be our focus because that's a distraction from where we are right now. And so where this season goes and what this team looks like is going to look a lot different than it did last year. And this is a new journey. We've got to rebuild that to get to where we need to be. And that started last winter. But the next step is now in preseason. And so, we know what the expectation is. Every time, I've, gone into a season at Ohio State, I guess this is going to be my 8th season now. 6 is the head coach. You expect to win every game. That's just what it is. And if you don't think that's the case, try losing a game at Ohio State. I mean, you're expected to win them all. So that's not new. We embrace it in recruiting, and we want to make sure that those type of people are in our program.
Ryan, Jimmy Watkins, Cleveland.com. In delegating play calling duties to Chip, obviously that's going to change your perspective on the game days, change your responsibilities on game day a little bit. How might that change the way you manage games on a situational basis?
Well, I think this year there is a change with the 2-minute warning. I think that needs to be something that we take into consideration. Just how the games are going to change at the end of the game. But other than that, I feel like I've always had a pretty good handle on that. So going into each game, we'll have a game plan in place. Chip's here for a reason, to run the offense. But I think it's my job as the head coach to look on the horizon and figure out what's coming. And in this conference, have experience of what's coming down the road, the games we need to win, how we need to win, also with the type of players that we have. So that'll kind of be my input in the offense. Knowing what we're doing, and the great thing for he and I is we see things the same way, and we've been in the same offense together in our careers. So I think there'll be a lot of that. But Chip's one of the best offensive minds in the history of college football, in my opinion, and he's a great play caller. So he's got to do that. He's just got to go and get a feel for our guys and let them call it. But in terms of the management of the game and everything, it'll allow me an opportunity to be on both sides of the ball, including special teams, and have a great feel for that and making those decisions.
Hey, Coach.
Mike Regalado, Bruin Report Online. Sticking with Chip, last few years I've been able to see his innovation and his creativity with players. Aside from that, how excited are you to see what he can do with this team, and what else does he bring to your program?
Well, I think when you look at any offense, what you're trying to do is you're trying to figure out what plays maximize the guys you have in the locker room. Chip has a background of doing things a lot of different ways. I think everyone immediately goes to the spread offense, and when he was at Oregon and some of the no huddle stuff. But he's at UCLA. You saw him do things with 3 tight ends in the game. Before that, there was a lot of 2-back stuff. There's a lot of different versatility in his background, and so I think the idea is, all right, what fits our guys? It starts with the quarterback, and then it goes with the offensive line, the running backs, the receivers, and how that all gets put together. I think he would tell you he's very excited about what he has, in terms of the talent level, on the perimeter, up front, the running backs, the quarterback options, the tight ends. So that's the journey that we're on. What is it that fits that? And then it's my job as the head coach to make sure it fits complementary football across the board and that the offense is complementing the defense. And so in terms of the second part of your question, what he brings, for me, turning it over, I really wanted to have somebody that, had head coaching experience. Now, never thought that, you'd have somebody that was a head coach the way he has been in college and in the NFL and that background. And so it allows me a little, more of a peace of mind and certainly a lot of trust there. I mean, I trust Chip with my life, and that's a big part of any time you're handing something over like that you've done, almost your entire career.
Coach Ryan Day, thank you so much for your time.
All right, thanks, guys.